It's a brand new day. Hey. Wake up every morning and say, it's a brand new day. Hey. Take a good day, make it great, okay? Cause if you got some lemons, make some lemonade. Yeah, it tastes so good.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Garden Diaries. We're so happy that you're here. I hope that you're enjoying this podcast. Megan and I really love getting to spend our weeks with y'all. If you haven't already, if you could share this podcast, that would be great on social media, or go ahead and leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. We're just so excited you're here. Megan.
Hello, welcome back to myself.
Megan was gone for a little family vacay. And so we had a little bit of a special guest last time, which was normally the Wizard of Oz behind the camera came in front of the camera. So for those of you that didn't catch that episode, go ahead and scoop back one.
It was really, really good. So 10 out of 10 recommend.
But we missed you. I missed my co-host. I'm glad you're back.
Happy to be back.
And we have a special guest today that we've been trying to get on the podcast now for what feels like 3 months.
Yeah.
But we're super excited about it. Do you want to introduce her?
Yeah. So we have Miss Sherry with us today. Welcome. So we are super excited you've joined us today. Would you like to share just a little bit about who you are? And then we'll get into some fun questions.
Okay, I'm Sherry Thompson, and my husband is the executive pastor here at Marcus Pointe Baptist Church, and I love the Lord. I have 3 children. One serves here as pastor and Tommy's secretary, and then I'm going to get in trouble for that secretary label, administrative assistant. And then my son is a children's pastor in Jacksonville, Florida. And then my younger daughter, she is in Jacksonville, Florida as well. And she works for an architectural firm, design firm.
Ooh.
And I have 5 grandkids in Jacksonville, 16, 14, 9, 7, and 2.
You didn't know this was a quiz, did you?
My grandkids were just here for 4 days, and it's funny, I love them to pieces, but we try to cram all the fun we can into the time they're here, and so we love having them. We love them so much, and we love being able to see our daughter-in-law and spend time with her. But then when they go home, it's like you're brain dead for 3 days. So please forgive me.
I think it takes a lot of mental fortitude to be around that many people when you're used to just y'all.
When your kids are raised, you're just not used to it anymore.
Yeah.
And because every day,
Yeah.
So.
It's like a lot of mind and like yelling. We yell a lot in my house, so I can only imagine. Like,
Well, there was no yelling.
well, like Riker's voice, the inside voice doesn't work. There's no inside voice, so it's outside voice 24/7. So when I mean yelling, like that's his normal level, but like
He takes after his mama.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Mike did say that I talk a little loud today. I don't know how to feel about that.
So I'm in good company.
Yes.
Oh, goodness.
Well, we like to start the podcast off with just something fun and lighthearted, just to kind of get you warmed up and talking. So we're going to ask you some fun questions. The first one, I left it like not super fun, but kind of interesting. Describe what your perfect day would be.
Perfect day. Stay home. Stay home with McDonald's. No. Tommy teases me because he likes to go to new restaurants, fancy restaurants, whatever. And I'm just happy with a hamburger and fries or a pizza, I'm really low maintenance. And but I can turn that a little bit. When we were dating, Tommy did an amazing date where we lived in Daytona Beach. And so we went putt-putt golfing, and he kept making such a big deal when he made a hole-in-one so that I was keeping the score. And so I just put 1 on every hole after that. And so when we got to the end of the game, and he says, "Who won?" And I showed him the card, and he goes, "I can't believe you did that." But I still have the card, actually.
Aww.
But then he drove us to the beach, and so by that time it's evening, and he takes out of his trunk all this stuff, baskets and all this stuff. And we go down to the beach, and he digs a hole and puts you know what a sterno is? It's a portable fire like thing. It's in a can, and you put it under chafing dishes and things. But it's a little fire, and you can't make fires on the beach. Not where we were at anyway. And so he dug a hole, put a sterno down there so we'd have a fire on the beach, and opens up this basket, and had grapes and crackers and all that stuff. And then he knew I didn't drink, and so he had a bottle of 7-Up, like a 1-liter bottle, wrapped in a napkin in an ice bucket with pretty glasses and all. And I was blown away. I'd never been treated like that in my life, and not since either. By the way, but
Tommy, if you're listening, I think we need to recreate this beautiful beach adventure.
That just told me how wonderful he is, and we do so many things. That it just got us started. That's all.
That's awesome. That's so sweet.
That was really sweet.
I love that. Hey, babe, are you taking tips? Are you taking notes? Got it. We got a thumbs up. It's in my future.
Okay, so my first question for you is, where's your dream vacation destination?
Ooh, that's hard because I grew up on the beach in Daytona Beach, and that's just home to me. And so vacation destination, usually I would say to go home and be on the beach. But we lived in Cincinnati for 4 years, and it was so beautiful when it snowed. We had a house that had a beautiful fireplace in the middle with 2 ceiling to floor side windows, and you could sit there with the gas fireplace on, looking out the windows and watching the snow fall.
That sounds cozy.
So something I would like to do, I've been asking Tommy for the past couple of years, I would like to go somewhere just to be in a cabin or something and watch the snow fall for a temporary snow experience, because this Florida girl got real antsy by May when it would finally warm up in Cincinnati, but otherwise it was a wonderful place to live.
Yeah. Megan is a mountain.
I am.
Like,
I'm not a beach girl.
And I'm a beach girl.
We'll see.
Yeah. I like to watch the snow in pictures on Facebook when family posts it.
That looks great.
That
Like and move on.
Absolutely. Don't need to experience it. I don't need to be
I
cold.
didn't realize those Christmas cards were real.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the iced up trees
Yes.
and all that stuff. And then living in Cincinnati, it was awesome because you'd go to church and they had beautiful big picture windows. And you'd look out, and I'd say to Tommy, those Christmas cards are real. I thought somebody made it up.
Yeah. Like AI.
Yeah, I mean, this Florida girl was blown away.
If you ever see a Christmas card with me with snow, it's definitely AI. It's not for real.
I'll be honest, I've never experienced like snow. Like that's not what I just like whenever I go outside and you can hear nature, you can hear the birds chirping, like that kind of cabin. Like that's what we did for our
You need to
vacation.
move to Molino.
That's not that far.
We love it out there.
Yeah, it is. It is so beautiful out there. I mean, we're on the cusp of Molino, and we always look at property like back there with like 4 to 10 acres. And like my dream is to have like horses and chickens and goats and all the things, and be able to grow my own, garden out there and just use from the land. That's like my dream. However, it's a lot of work.
Oh, it's a ton of work. But good thing we're workers.
Yeah.
'Cause that's kind of like our stress relief is to go out and work hard, which doesn't sound right, but that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my turn, right? Yep. Okay. Let me get back to my little notes here. What would you say is the worst hairstyle fashion trend of all time?
Oh my goodness, the 80s. That big hair thing. I don't know though. I mean, that took a lot of hairspray. My hair's naturally big on a normal basis, so. But I know those beehive hairdos. Those were. I mean, I'm just saying, those were a lot of upkeep and stuff.
Yeah.
But in my era, I'd have to say those big 80s hairstyles.
Yeah. I feel like my hair was born for the 80s because it's got a lot of volume. that I don't always
See,
want.
You wouldn't have been good in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a small child in the 70s, but it was all the flat, long hair. You know,
Yeah.
Very flat.
I would have been perfect for
Yes.
that.
Yes, exactly.
So we should do like a podcast where we dress in the era of our hair.
Of our hair. That would be really funny.
Where you're like the 70s and I'm the 80s with the
Yeah.
like, because I can make that thing go out to here if we need
Yeah,
to.
right.
Like it goes.
Mine does. It stays just like this.
Well, I'm never on trend, so it doesn't matter.
You're trendy.
Oh, sure.
All right. My second question is, what character from a movie, book, or show do you relate to the most and why?
Ooh.
Anyone who knows me knows what I'm going to say. I love Lucy. Lucy Ricardo. I'm a huge Lucille Ball fan. I'm not a fan of her lack of faith in God, but I am a fan of her comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucy Ricardo is me all over the place. I'm mean. I make messes, and Tommy fixes them. And that's it. That's me.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, I'm not an airhead.
No,
But,
you're very intelligent, absolutely. But I can see the personality.
Oh, yeah.
She's hilarious, and so are you. So it fits. Okay, kind of going off that. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh my goodness, that's hard because I have a couple of favorites, and I'm not really a movie watcher or anything, and I love old movies, the classics. I love the classics, and Long Long Trailer with Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball is one of my favorites. It's so funny, but I love Sabrina. And Sabrina was made first with Audrey Hepburn and William Holden in the 50s, I think. I think it was the 50s. And I love that one, but I also love the one made in the 90s with Harrison Ford and Julia Ormond. And it's one I can watch. It's a Cinderella story. I think that's why.
I don't think I've ever even heard of that
Because
movie.
it was a girl that was playing. Tommy says this is why I like it. It was a girl that was playing that became beautiful, and I guess I dream of being beautiful one day. I don't know.
You
but,
are beautiful.
Anyway, so those are my favorites.
I'm going to have to
Love
put
that.
that on my list.
Sabrina, yeah.
Movies
I
to
thought she
watch.
was talking about Sabrina the Teenage Witch
Yeah,
for a
I know.
second.
That's where
Everybody
mine
does.
went. to.
Yes, everybody does.
Yeah.
But you said it has Harrison Ford, and I love him as an actor. So
Oh, he's so funny
He
in
is.
this one.
Okay.
He's very droll. And so you're sitting here going, really? I've seen you in Star Wars. I haven't seen you in
Yeah.
something like this. So it is funny to
It's a
watch.
good one, yeah.
And Humphrey Bogart is actually Harrison Ford's part in the one with Audrey Hepburn.
Oh.
So it's funny to see him in that role. But anyway.
we're going to have to check that one out.
yeah.
Put it on our to-do list.
Oh, it's my turn.
It's your turn.
Is this the last? This is the last one. Okay. What is a food combination people eat that you just can't get behind? For example, dipping French fries in Frosties.
Oh, that's good.
I know that, but
We like that
we
one.
like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is there like a weird thing that you do or that you don't like to do?
I mean, I live with a man that loves all food combinations. Oh, I know. I just saw it on a commercial. What is up with the Chick-fil-A sandwich with pimento spread on it?
Oh, yes. Blech.
I know. I
You
don't like
it?
pimento, but I love that sandwich.
Really?
Yes, it is so good.
Because when we don't watch very much TV, but I saw a commercial last night. We were just watching something to try to, defragment a little bit. And I went, oh, it looks worse than it sounds when I hear the commercial
Yeah.
on a podcast. So
No, it's good. I mean, I think it's good. And I don't like pimento cheese. And so
What? It remind me again what pimento cheese is
it's
made
like
out of.
cheddar cheese with pimentos.
What's pimento?
It's like
though?
I think it's like a pepper.
I thought it was like garbanzo beans.
pimentos are in the middle of an olive, the red thing in the middle.
Yeah, it's like
Oh.
so it kind of has like the texture of like a pepper, like a cooked pepper.
So
but it's like chopped up. It's like they're really tiny.
But can you taste like the
No,
texture?
No.
Like it's
Yeah,
crunchy.
It's just no. It's not crunchy.
I don't like texture.
No, and then it has. Well, you probably want. It has like a mayonnaise base,
Yeah, it's
which you don't like
goopy.
any
No mayonnaise.
white sauces.
No white sauces for me.
So, but it's very good, and I don't like pimento cheese. Zach loves pimento cheese, and he loves the sandwich. I don't like pimento, and I like the sandwich. Plus, it has honey and jalapeno, so it's like.
Mike is shaking his head, and he eats a lot. Like
But you can't. In my honest opinion, you cannot trash something till you try it.
Okay, Mike. So I'm going to order the pimento. I'm going to DoorDash
We're all going
it.
to Chick-fil-A.
It's visually unattractive.
It is.
It is, and it's messy too. Don't try eating it while you're driving, by the way.
Well, that's when you eat Chick-fil-A. When do you...
Exactly. You don't.
Sit down. I think I've sat down at Chick-fil-A maybe I can count on one hand. Like, it's always a drive-through.
Kids, don't they
Yes.
like the play place?
Well, the play place was closed for like the longest time.
My grandkids love going to Chick-fil-A.
They do, but like I'm hearing that they're getting rid of all these play places.
Well, they're a hotbed of germs. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
they are. And they're a liability, I guess, too.
You think? I don't know. I just keep thinking of all the potty training children going in.
I think of that too, and I'm like, no adults go up in there to see what's going on.
That's my kid, the potty training one. Oh, speaking of that, so last night I have a story for you. So last night Riker was in the kitchen and he was carrying one of Kinsley's baby dolls. And he's like, baby. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like singing and it's so sweet. Like he's singing to the baby. And I look at the baby. I'm like, what's on the baby's face? And he's like, caca. I said, how did caca get on the baby's face? He said, butt. I pooped. He spread caca on, and he calls it caca because we had a sweet volunteer that volunteers in the back, and she's Hispanic, and she calls it caca. Yeah. So like he calls his poop caca, and so he's like caca on his face, like just matter of factly, like
it doesn't belong.
And I'm like, now we got to give the baby a bath, and he's like, I give baby bath. I'm like, you need a bath, sir. It was so sweet, like
Oh my goodness.
boys and poop. That is not something girls did. Like, my girls never touched their poop. They never talked about poop. They never, none of that. But Riker, he sticks his hand in his diaper and he's like, caca. It's on my hand. Ew, yucky.
Yeah, I've not experienced that with
Okay.
boys. Yeah.
Well, maybe it's just me.
I'm sure it's not just you.
Okay.
I'm just saying I have not experienced.
Yeah. Ryder didn't do that.
No, but Ryder's OCD. So
Can you give some of that to Riker? Like,
he's been OCD since he was a baby, and
I need some of that because whoa, it was. Mike's outside changing the light bulb outside, and I'm dragging Riker outside like hose him off. Like he's a goner. Like I can't do this in my kitchen sink. Like hose the kid off. He's like, I'm not gonna hose him off in the patio, and I'm like, he can't be inside.
children.
I know.
Blessings from the Lord.
Such blessings. All right, so we've had a little bit of fun. Obviously, I know you because we've interacted and we've had chats, so I know a little bit about your story. But for those that are listening that don't know, you play a pretty important role as a pastor's wife, as well as I want to know a little bit more of who you are.
That's kind of general.
I know.
Tommy being the executive pastor, it doesn't involve me very much. And that's been an adjustment for me because we were in youth ministry for 15 years, and that involved me very much. And then other things that he's done in the ministry, which has been...
How long has he been in ministry for?
Wow. He'll kill me because I'm probably saying this wrong, but I think it's been more than 25 years.
Wow.
But, because if you think, maybe closer, at least 25. Anyway, but, the years fly by, and we've done, it was cool raising kids in ministry. Tommy was a youth pastor while our kids were teenagers, and that was lovely, except for I homeschooled as well. So, when you're their Sunday school teacher, your youth pastor's wife, and their homeschool teacher, that's a lot of mom.
Yeah.
And so I always prayed for godly women to invest in my girls, and he has answered that prayer. But anyway, so we had that privilege. And then so we did, you just jump in with youth ministry and you're just running all the time. It was so funny, though, because, when we went to amusement parks or camps, conferences, all that stuff, our kids got so used to being with other teenagers that we said, you know what, we need to take our family on a vacation, just us, because that's not fair. They're always with other kids. And we lived in Tampa at the time for this part of the youth ministry. And so we went to Busch Gardens, which was right next door to our church. And we're walking around, and I promise you, our girls are going, it's so boring without the rest of the kids. And I'm going, oh, my lands. Never mind. We give up. We give up. But Tommy always did really cool things that were where they learned memory verses, or they learned the Romans Road, or he would take them soul winning, stuff like that. Or if they completed a series, and then he would take them to Six Flags Over Georgia, things like that. So we were always doing something fun. But it's busy, very, very busy. And so when he came here, and there's not really a role for me, working with him, which may be a good thing, I have to find my own place. But still, as a staff wife, you or a wife of anybody in ministry, whether, you have to understand that their hours are not regular, that you can't be calling them every 2 minutes and expecting them to answer the phone. Right. He'll call me when he can, and if I don't need him, I don't bother him, because he's doing important stuff for Jesus, and my part of that is to leave him alone. But for him to come home to a calm house and dinner on the table or whatever. He cooks way better than me, though. Oh. So I love it when he comes home and says, you know what, I want to fix da da da. I'm like, yes. But anyway, very important role to be the wife of someone in ministry. I don't care if it's a lay person or a paid staff, to give them a place to go, that when they come home, when it was kids, when we had kids at home, it was, Daddy, Daddy's home, let fun begin. Tommy's always been equated with fun, whether it's grandkids or kids. Daddy's home, let the fun begin. And so whether it's that or, the love of your family when you get home. So you don't talk bad about your husband. Yeah. You don't talk bad about Daddy. Daddy's working very hard. What he's doing for Jesus is very important. Mm-hmm. People need to know Jesus, and so what he does is so very important. And you don't make them feel bad. You don't make them feel bad that their dad isn't here right now. Yeah. He loves you so much, and he wishes he could be here. That actually just happened. Our grandkids were here, and Tommy was kind of hoping he could come home between working in church Wednesday night, so he could spend a little bit of time with the grandkids. And some things had happened and needed his attention, and he couldn't. And so, the grandkids are saying, where's Papa? And I said, he would be here if he could. Yeah. But he's having to take care of some things, and their daddy's a children's pastor, so they're used to that. But it's not. You don't want it to come across as neglect, because it isn't neglect. No. Daddies and mamas invest heavily in their kids when they get home. So you don't want their kids to go, oh, Daddy's not home again. No, that's not it. Yeah. We're serving Jesus, and that's eternal. We pour into you every other minute, but we got to allow Daddy to do what God's called him to do.
That's good. I think, at least for us, I think having the background of the military, where Mike was gone so much that those conversations had to be had, obviously in a different capacity, right? Like,
because he's in God's army now,
right? And so,
oh, sorry, I know you weren't in the army. So.
That's okay. But so I think that adjustment for us was not as hard as it can be for some individuals who get called into the military. Maybe they're in a different career, right? Where they're used to seeing their spouse 24/7 or very often, or to your point, like being able to talk to them all the time. Like, there were weeks that went by that I never heard from him. So it's
an adjustment.
It is.
No matter what your vocation, it's an adjustment. But at least if you're serving Jesus, you can say it has eternal value.
It does. It does. And I think I love what you said about how you kind of put perspective around it, even for someone young to understand, like, it's okay. He's doing the Lord's work. He's doing good stuff. And I think sometimes we can, like, I can be like, another thing, another, and I get defeated. And I get defeated. But I think,
is it just me again?
Right. Like, I have to do bedtime and bath time all alone again. But I think, to your point, I think and we talked about this a lot on the podcast, but it's like all about that perspective that you have, and like having the Lord's perspective and not our human nature perspective.
But Satan brings your human perspective up real quick. Yes. And then before you know it, you're just going down that rabbit hole. And we can't all be 100% godly all the time, right?
That's right.
And
Right.
God knows that. We're dust. He made us. He knows how fallible we are and loves us still. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good. Did you have a question? Sorry, I thought you were going to talk.
No,
Okay.
I'm-
Oh, you were intently listening. So, I have a question. So let's speak to maybe somebody that's listening right now that maybe their husband has this call in their life, but they're a little scared. I'll be the first one to be honest with you. When Mike came and told me, hey, we're going to get out of the military with our health insurance and my pay and our study, and I'm going to get out and I'm going to be a pastor. And I said, you should probably go back to sleep now. I think you're dreaming. And that, again, was that selfishness of me not understanding in that moment that the Lord had so many bigger plans for him. And it was
I
so
start
scary.
getting choked up when I think of how good God is.
He is so good. So my question for you is, what piece of advice would you give someone that maybe their significant other is having that call, or maybe it's a woman that's listening that has a call on her life to get more involved and to be a part or to start a podcast or a ministry in their church? What advice would you give them?
Can I tell a story instead?
Absolutely.
Because you know me, I'm a story.
I love it.
Tommy has an amazing testimony. Amazing. And I wish he would share it more. And he only ever shares pieces of it. And so, but I have gotten to have a front row of Tommy's spiritual life from beginning to now. And it has been the most amazing, amazing journey. And to watch what God does when you just let him. And a quote from Dwight L. Moody is, "The world is yet to see what God can do with one man wholly committed to him." And Tommy's one of those ones that he's so grateful for his salvation that he serves God every day with gladness. And he was saved at 15. But anyway, in regards to ministry, Tommy and I, we felt like we needed to get on the success train when our kids were younger. And so I was working into management and retail, and Tommy was a bug man. We couldn't call him that when he really was a bug man. We had to call him a pest control technician or something. I don't know. But anyway, it's just funny. But, you know, he started as a guy tenting houses for termites, and you know, he was the one carrying the tarps up the ladders and all that stuff. And then he got promoted, and you know, and then he's a bug man, and then he's, you know, he just got promoted, and then the company he was working for, he ended up gave him all his foundation, and then Orkin actually, he went to work for Orkin, and Orkin. He was a lay youth pastor. He was a lay youth pastor for a couple of years. So all of our vacations, if he had vacation time, we were at a teen conference, or we were at camp, or we were taking the kids on an incentive trip, and we never thought anything about it. That's serving Jesus. My parents, I guess, really put that inside of me, so I never resented it, or not that I recall. I could just be having the lovely forgetfulness, but anyway. So Tommy's on the upward track at Orkin. I mean, they're pushing him hard, up, and he's loving it. You know, because he loves more. Give me more. And we were at a missions conference at our church, Crossroads Baptist Church in Daytona. And one of our friends, Mike Grover, was there preaching. He's a pastor at a church in Tampa, Fellowship Baptist in Tampa. And he was preaching that missions conference, and I can remember that we were sitting close to the front, and I just felt the Lord just tugging on my heart. And I mean, I always swore I would never marry a youth pastor. Well, I didn't, but then he tricked me and became one. But anyway, but I looked over at Tommy and I said, "Excuse me," because I wanted to go to the altar, because I just felt God calling me. But he was already on his way to the altar. And we get down there, and we pray separately. We didn't pray together. We were both there for separate reasons. And then after church, we had both been called into full-time ministry separately, but at the same time.
Wow.
If that isn't God, I don't know what it is. And we took it very seriously. We didn't know what God was going to do. And then, of course, the first thing you do is go to Bible college, right? You know, we tried 3 times to go to Bible college. and God just slammed the doors.
Oh, wow.
No, Bible college isn't your route. And it was funny because we were closely connected to Trinity Baptist College in Jacksonville through youth conferences and things like that we were there all the time. And the dean of men, he was taking us around trying to get us started with, going to college and stuff. And he took Tommy aside and he said, you have more experience and knowledge than a 4-year graduate. So maybe college isn't what you need to do first, which was really isn't that the natural next step,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make this short, I promise. But anyway, so Orkin ended up wanting to transfer him to Tampa. And we're like, what? Everything's going so great here. All of our family's here. Our youth group is just, blowing the doors off. Everything's great. But again, we prayed about it, and it was what we needed to do. We go to Tampa. He's the youngest branch manager for Orkin in the second largest branch in the company.
Wow.
And he was getting the brass ring, because corporate was his goal, that he was searching for. And so he gets there and he jumps in. He's doing a great job, doing really well and everything. And so he goes to the pastor of our church in Tampa and says, listen, I was a youth pastor, a lay youth pastor in Daytona. Can I do that here? And he goes, man, we got 3 people. We got a guy already in there that's been in there a while. He says he's got 2 people behind him. We're covered in youth. And Tommy goes, well, what can I do? What can I do? Yeah. And he goes, well, you want to work in children? And Tommy goes, okay, yeah. And so, he just did whatever the pastor told him. So I'm trying to fast forward, sorry. Well, anyway, it came to where magically those 3 guys disappeared. It was job transfers, things like that, and they disappeared. And so then he comes to Tommy. Now, Tommy was making very good money and doing very well. And the pastor comes to Tommy and says, all I've got to offer you is part-time maintenance and part-time youth. Would you even be interested in that? And Tommy goes, yeah. Because even though he was doing what he dreamed, he wasn't happy. He had surrendered to full-time ministry. And he just was only happy when he was serving, whether it was as a lay person or as a paid person. And so he grabbed that maintenance plus youth pastor job with both hands, took about a 2/3 cut in pay. And so I'm freaking out like you, Brittany. I'm like, Mama's going back to work.
Yeah.
And, all that. Anyway, but we were going to do what he needed to do to make it work. And he was so happy. He was so happy cleaning bathrooms and working with the youth, And but part of that was that they would pay him 8 hours a week to do, now it's online. Then it was correspondence, Bible college. Oh. And that's how he got his degree. Aww. And so, of course, as anyone knows who's in ministry, did he really get those 8 hours a week? No. He did it at home, okay? That's just the honest truth, but that's okay. That's how he got his degree. But that was what God had. That's why we couldn't go to college. But he was the happiest he'd ever been. Took another job as an overnight grocery stocker. He'd sit on the platform about to fall asleep every Sunday morning because they sat up on the platform. But, he was just so excited to be serving Jesus. He was so happy, and he's never looked back. And God has taken him through so many things, which is really cool because he can relate to these guys, what they do. He's done it. Mm-hmm. He's done maintenance. He's done youth. He's done children. He's done outreach. He started an amazing outreach event in Daytona called Walk Through Bethlehem. And it's still going to this day. Wow. But it's an amazing presentation at Christmas time that the community really looks forward to. We would have 10 to 13,000 people that would come through Walk Through Bethlehem. Wow. And that would hear the gospel. And our son last Christmas time decided to do it at his church. Well, he didn't decide it. He asked his pastor if they could do it at their church. And very thankfully, his pastor said yes, and the church got behind it and didn't know what in the world they were getting behind, because you're selling an idea. And they had they got rained out a couple nights, but because it's an outdoor thing, and but they had so many people come, and it was such a great event that they're now preparing for this year. You have to start very early, but because there's speaking parts and all of that. But anyway, so God has taken us through many things, and through all of it, God is faithful.
Yeah.
And it was when, because we were not wise with our money before we surrendered to ministry, and so we had to get out of some holes when Tommy surrendered for ministry, and we didn't see it then, but we see it now. God providing this. We bought this house, but then we sold it for enough to pay off our credit card debt, get something else a little smaller, which was one of our favorite places, by the way. And, and so God prepared us for living a ministry life, because you learn, and you know what? We've never paid a bill late. We've always had what we needed. God has always provided. And I think, in the fear of, what do you mean we're going into ministry? Because it is we, by the way.
It is.
There's no just I.
Yeah.
It's scary, but God provides, and it's mind-blowing, and you can be a testimony of how good God is, how faithful. Do you ever have scary times? Of course. I'm sure you know that, Brittany.
Oh, yes.
You have scary times, but you're not alone. And that's the whole point, right? And then you raise your kids with you in ministry. Our kids, Stephanie's good at what she does because her daddy put her through it, just being his kid. And, our dinner table times were brainstorming youth ideas, what if we do this? What if we do that? Or what can we do with this or that? And our kids loved it. We brainstormed. It was our ministry. And that way your children don't resent ministry.
Yes.
And, children are individuals. They make their choices, and they choose how they respond to things. Right. You can't control that. But all three of our children, it's funny because if we get together at a function, our girls immediately jump in. We work like a well-oiled machine to this day.
Yeah.
Because that's what we've always done.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love it that we've given our kids that legacy. We've told them. I said, we've told them that every dollar we have, we're spending on you now. So when we go, we don't expect anything. But we have left them a legacy of, I believe,
Jesus.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. I love what you were saying too, because you were talking about like college, and that's a natural step. Just going back into your story, sometimes I feel like we have to have it all together, but we forget that God uses the most unequivocable, that we think unequivocable people. And I'll never forget, I was talking to somebody, and they had said, but your husband's going into ministry, but he's never been to college for ministry. And I'm like, ye of little faith. And I thought, and that stuck in my head because I think about that all the time. And I'm like, look at what God's done. Like, all Mike did was surrender. And look at what God's, like, if you would have told me when he told me that and woke me up in the morning that I'd be sitting at this table right now with y'all, I'd laugh in his face. And I'd say, you're really funny. I think that you might need to go back to sleep. But like, to your point, like, just watching how God has just opened door after door, and being in God's will is the hardest place to be, but it's the most rewarding.
Yes.
100%.
Agree 100%.
And to your point, there's struggles, and I think Satan comes after you in tenfold. When you're in God's will, and you can attest to this too.
It applies to everybody.
It does.
Right? Yes.
And but I love that story because I think it sheds lights on people that maybe are sitting there and there's a tug at their heart and they're not listening because they're afraid. And that's our human nature and that's our flesh. And I think if we get out of the way and we let God just use us, like,
I always tell wives, your husband being happy is pivotal to your family. And if he's being called into ministry, he's not going to be happy doing anything else. Tommy's not a miserable person, but he was miserable achieving his dream. Okay, I mean, you're getting what you wanted. You know, why aren't you happy? No, but the minute he got to clean and take care of teens, he was a happy guy, and because it's serving Jesus.
Yeah.
And when God calls you, He's giving you that desire and that need for that, because He gives us everything we need before we need it. And God's ahead of us all the time. Just friends of mine, just this past couple of weeks, that have gone through hard times, but God's been ahead of it. He already provided ahead of time. And it just blows your mind how good God is. And we forget He's Almighty God, and He knows what's up.
Yeah.
And we just need to walk in the step He has for us today.
Yep.
And not worry about tomorrow. I mean, be wise, obviously.
Right.
But, you know.
Yeah. No, that's good.
I think you saying about how he wasn't happy until he was doing what the Lord had called him to do, I think is such a testimony of, you can have all the money in the world. You can have the most bougie job and the most beautiful, huge mansion of a house. But if God has called,
we needed that. Yes, we did.
But if God has called you elsewhere, that temporary joy is not gonna. It's not going to continue until you're doing exactly.
That's my son's testimony, actually. He was called into ministry, and then you know, it's his own story, obviously, and then took a little detour, and but that desire stayed there. And you pray for your babies, and you say, God, we know. We never told our kids, you have to serve God. We've always told them, you do whatever God has you to do, and then you be the best volunteer. I don't care, you know, what it is, and then you give, you know, because people work outside of ministry to make money. No, our church is very good to Tommy. That was not a bash at all.
Yeah.
But there are some churches where it's very difficult, and you know, and so if God has you as a lay person in the church that makes a lot of money or makes whatever, then you give. Be that giver. Be that volunteer that we need in our churches to keep us going.
Yes.
Everybody can't be in full-time ministry. So, you know, we never told them what God's will was for them. So when our son surrendered to ministry, of course, Tommy and I are dancing. You know, we knew he was born for it. I mean, you know, he and his friend were running children's church from the time, and when they were teenagers, you know, he just always had this thing with kids, but then it took, you know, walking a different road for a while, but God brought him back, and I can't praise God enough for that. He's just, you know, it's so funny, you see it in your own life, and then you see it in your kids, that God's faithfulness is just mind-blowing.
So good. So good.
I actually have a question for both of you, since you're both.
We're in the same boat.
Yes, you're in the same boat. I'm on a different ship.
Oh, we have fellowship. We're two fellows in the same
She's
ship.
in the front. I'm in the back,
holding
on for dear life.
No.
I've seen a different perspective because my father-in-law was an evangelist, and so I saw
that's very different.
Yes, and I how I met my husband was in camp ministry, and his dad, 10 months out of the year, did evangelism, and then 2 months did camp ministry. He was the director of a camp, and that's how I met. I was a counselor, met Zach. And so obviously over the course of years, I saw from her perspective, like, you know, my father-in-law kind of got all the, and I don't mean this like all the attention, if that makes sense. Like, it was always like, Brother Abbott. And his wife, like, was by his side serving, you know, most times she went to bed without him because he was up counseling people late at night.
She was holding down the house, raising the kids and all of that.
Yes. So I've read a quote the other day. It popped up actually when I was out of town, and I sent it to Brittany because it just kind of reminded me of the need to pray for a pastor's wife. And it said, today is a great day to pay don't pay. I mean, you can. If you want.
You can pay me. You can. I'm not saying no to it.
To pray for your pastor's wife. Often she can be the most overlooked person in the church. She serves in ministry, bears all the same burdens that he bears, may have a job, and also tends to manage a lot of things at home. She's a gift to the church. And that just hit me because I'm like, you know, I see Brittany like as a friend, but you know, thinking as a pastor's wife, like, I know that at times she probably feels overlooked. And so how do you both feel encouraged by other people as a pastor's wife? Because I know, like, there may be pastor's wife listening, or people in a church that obviously loves their pastor's wives, but maybe doesn't see the need for, I guess, outreach to them, you know, because whenever you're in ministry, a lot of times you're not getting ministered to. And so what encourages you as a pastor's wife from your friends? Or
You want to go first?
You go first.
Okay. I'll say a couple of things. So keeping your circle of people you can really trust and confide in very small, and
Very
meaning
small to zero.
right. So really that is very hard too, because you feel alone. One thing that I think our church does a really good job at, especially at our campus, is I think everybody knows me so well that they see me running around with my head cut off sometimes on Sunday morning, but they always ask, how can we help? And to your point, we need people that can recognize that church doesn't just, especially at a campus life, and you know this, you can't just open the door. Everybody comes in and that's church. There's so many little pieces, and a lot of that is we need help. And I don't ask for help. I'm not good at asking for help.
Me either.
But we've gotten to the point where we have relationships with people in our church that they can just look at me and know, okay, Brittany, what do we need to do? What give me a list. And so for me, I've been working on delegating and putting those processes in place to say, it'd be very helpful if this person did this, and this, and I didn't have to do this. But I think what's encouraging for me is that when people see that I'm bought in, because I see the vision and I see where we're going as a church, and I'm beside him, they see me doing it, they just want to do it too. And I think that is super encouraging. I think it's also super important that this relationship between me and him is rock solid. And how that happens is kind of what we talked about on the podcast last time, is our relationships with the Lord individually, our relationship with the Lord together as a couple, communication, like open communication, and intimacy. And we talked about that in the podcast last time, and that's not just sexual intimacy, it's intimacy together as a husband and wife being one. And so that's really helped, as well as, again, spending time in the Word and really in my relationship with the Lord and growing that and feeding myself. And because a lot of people do come to me and, ask for advice, and it's heavy stuff that we carry around. And the only thing I can do is give it to the Lord, because I'm not strong enough. I'm just the vessel he's using for that person. I need to give it back to the Lord. And I think we can get stuck in people's stuff, and it's so heavy. So I think just remembering that you can't do it. That's why we have the Lord.
Right.
I think it's Mike and I's relationship has to be so solid. And then the other thing for me is I do work full time, and I love what I do. I am so passionate about my career. But if the Lord came to me tomorrow and said, Brittany, I need you to step away, that'd probably be the hardest ask. But I have to be in a position with the Lord to know that if he asked me to give that up, I have to. And
There's a good reason for it.
100%. There's more blessings in the end. So he's allowed me to be in a spot where I really, really love and what I'm passionate about. And I pray that continues, because I love doing what I do and it gives me a purpose outside of ministry.
Gives you some validation.
It does. And
That's why I like to work.
Right.
Nobody tells you, thank you. You made my bed this morning.
Yeah.
Thank you. You did my laundry. And what a great job.
Right. And I still do, and you still do all those things. I still do all those things. So I think it's a lot to answer your question, but boils down to, like, my relationship with the Lord has to be rock solid. And sometimes it's not. And I can feel that. And it oozes out of me as a person. It oozes out of me in my ministry. It oozes out to him. That's got to be number one. No matter what. Whatever's taking me away from that, it's got to go. So I've been very in lockstep with that. And then second is my marriage. That's the most important thing, is him and I have to be one, and we have to be in communication, and we have to be in the Lord. And then my kids, obviously, and then everything else kind of falls under that.
Well, I know that we were at a place in our ministry, not that what you said about being, both of you have to be in a right relationship with God, because you can't love each other properly,
Right.
or serve properly if you aren't 100% committed to God, both of you. And that's funny. I just had this conversation with my granddaughter. She's 9. Her name is Cammie. And she, her and I slept in the man cave on inflatable mattresses. So, you get to talk about cool stuff. And she was talking about she's not dating anybody if they don't love God. I said, good for you. And I said, and they can't pretend to love God either, right? No. I said, and then, because we have to love God first before we can love each other, just like your mommy and daddy. She goes, yes, So we were talking about those things, which to me is the biggest gift ever, to be able to pour into your grandkids at any opportunity. But we had a particularly rough time at one point, and we didn't understand why we were where we were. And so then we'd start this, the only person you can really snip at is each other. And it was we have a great marriage, but that was the toughest time. There was never any idea of us splitting or anything like that. We were just on edge with each other so much because so much going on. But even then, and then Tommy would look at me and say, Sherry, do you believe that God, he said, we prayed about this. Do you believe that God wants us here? And I'd say, yes, absolutely. But it doesn't change how I'm feeling right now.
Yes.
But the point of that story is we could both go back to, yes, we prayed about this. God told us that this is what we're supposed to do. So there's a reason we're here, even though it's so very hard. But we're going to keep going. We're just going to keep going. And because as far as support, what you said, your mother-in-law has had a very tough road. I believe she's going to have extra rewards in heaven because your husband's actually gone so much with evangelism. And I think that affects the kids and things like that. And I can't be judgmental about it because I've not been there. And but I'm sure she probably has very godly wisdom to impart, because that is hard when your husband's an evangelist. But as far as support, you really don't have any.
Yeah.
As I know I've been my heart burdened for staff wives. I didn't know what to do, so I would try to take them to lunch every once in a while or something to try to connect with them, because you are forgotten. And people forget that what you don't see here at church, you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. I can't tell you how many flyers I've folded and how many envelopes I've stuffed. And, we've done all that stuff at home, all the things, that we do. Stephanie still drags me into all that. I'm kidding. I love helping her out. I volunteer here at church when I have the opportunity because I just love being a part of it. And so the support sometimes isn't there. Most of the time it isn't there. Our Miss June is a wonderful, wonderful lady.
Yes.
Wonderful lady. And Pastor could not be here for the 30-plus years he's here without her.
That's right.
Because she had to keep the home fires burning. She had to get the kids back and forth to school. She had to, all of that. And she taught and everything else. And she still is at our school over here advising and doing things and, to make sure that ministry continues. Nobody sees that, but people at the school. People that just come to church on Sunday, they don't see that she's doing that. And so acknowledging the people. I mean, think about Jeremy. Deborah has a very full-time job being school administrator at our school. She does a great job, and she still supports Jeremy, our worship leader, for those of you who don't know. And they still have their children they take care of and all of that. And so it gets lonely. It does, doesn't it, Brittany? Sometimes you get lonely. I've never been one to attract close friends. Tommy's my very best friend. And, I would ask my mom, because my mom never had friends either. And I said, Mom, who do you talk to? Because I have to verbalize everything. And she goes, God. And I said, and that's enough? She says, why wouldn't it be?
That's
and
good.
I just, she didn't have, her mom and dad both died when she was very young, and she didn't have an aunt or an uncle or a mom or a dad to go to and talk to or anything like that. My mom, I guess, would probably be the only one that I could talk to. But yeah, you just keep going. And you know that the Lord knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And you just keep going. You have to keep looking at the bigger picture and just keep going.
I will say too, like one of the things that I think that we forget is that we're human too.
Yes.
And a lot of times if I am having a bad day, it's not allowed. And a lot of people come to me and they're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm like, I'm just not on today.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do everything in my power to be on 24/7.
You can't.
I would say be gracious to your pastor's wife. So those that you're listening, like, you never know what they're walking through.
Yes.
You never know what burdens they're bearing.
Yes.
You don't know if somebody just came to them and told them something super heavy that now they have to
Yes.
snap out of, which happens
Yes.
every
All
Sunday.
the time. Yes.
So I would just say be patient.
Yes.
If anything, and to your point, recognition isn't.
No.
It's not needed.
It's not about recognition.
No, never. It's never about that. But I think just being cognizant of it, that we're human, we're gonna make mistakes. I'm not always gonna be 100%.
Our kids aren't perfect.
Oh my goodness, that was one thing I had to get over real quick.
Yeah. My house isn't always clean.
Right.
You know, all that stuff.
Right. I order DoorDash sometimes.
Hey, I would do it every day if I could get away with it.
Same.
Oh, wait. They don't deliver to Molina.
There's a couple that are starting.
Really?
Try Uber Eats.
Ooh, good news. Uh-oh, Tommy's not going to like you.
I didn't say that, Tommy. Like laundry's not always, but yeah, I think, you know, one of the things that I would say is just somebody listening that, you know, you see your pastor's wife, just say an extra prayer for her.
Yes.
And just
Or
love
just
on
give
her.
her a squeeze.
Yeah, just give her a squeeze.
That's all. You don't have to say anything.
Yeah.
That's good. We'll have another question.
Okay.
If you're good.
Yeah, we're
this
good.
is one we asked. I know you asked advice that you would give to somebody, but I think it's important also to provide scripture. Obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
So speaking to other pastors' wives who are walking through what you've walked through, do you have scriptures that have comforted your heart that you could share with them?
Yes. I was ready for that, actually.
Look at you.
I was raised in a conservative fundamental Baptist household, and I am proud of that, by the way. I have a great biblical foundation. I have a great idea of what it's like to serve Jesus. I am very, very thankful for that. But I'm saying this in mind with I would never want to hurt my mom and dad by saying anything negative at all, because they're great. The way they raised me is great. But I actually said this to my mom last time I saw her. It might have been taught, but I didn't hear it, or I didn't receive the grace that when you make a mistake, there is no coming back from it. I mean, that's what I was always taught. So the verse that changed my life, we were at our church, and we had a wonderful pastor in Daytona, very clear speaker, he brought everything to where you could understand it, and he had a discipleship that he started on Saturday afternoons. Now, I was raised in church, and, you know, Tommy was still learning, but we couldn't wait to go to that discipleship. Oh, it was so good. It was about 50 people sitting in a big circle, and we couldn't wait to go because we were learning things we'd never heard before, you know, about Christian growth and things. And then he got to the lesson about God's will for your life. Well, see, I've made a lot of really dumb choices, and I don't have to say what they are, just really dumb ones that, you know, put me out of the running for being in service or full-time ministry according to the way I was taught. And our pastor, in the lesson about God's will, he used Lamentations 3:22 and 23. It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. And I learned about God's mercy being new every day. And I can make some really dumb decisions, and I can do some really stupid things. But today's a new day, and God wants to use me. Because before that lesson, I thought that God was done with me. I would love him the rest of my life, but I would never be allowed to serve him in a church or anything like that. And those verses changed my life. And the other one that changed Tommy and I both was when we were both chasing the brass ring. And this verse is in 2 Timothy. But godliness, 1 Timothy, sorry, I'm misquoting, but godliness with contentment is great gain.
Ooh.
For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out.
That's good.
The only thing we take with us is what we've done for Jesus. And so it was funny because that was the same pastor preaching a message, and when he said that, it just hit me hard. This running after the bigger job and the bigger money, it's just like, what do they call that, a hamster wheel. You're just chasing it. It's never enough. The house is never big enough. The car is never pretty enough or new enough. Everything decays and rots. But what we've done for Jesus.
That's good.
Being eternal. And so those are the two that really changed my life. And the other thing, too, is of women always being alone at nights, especially because a lot of activities are at night. And I always had these weird fears about my daughters being, somebody coming in through their bedroom door and, taking them away or something. I always had that horrible fear. And then the other verse in 1 Timothy, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And that's a big one. I can take it to Jesus, and that's what I would do, because Tommy worked third shift for a while, and so he would be gone, and the fear would just take me over. Well, fear is pretty ambiguous. It hits in a lot of different ways. And so the fear of going into the ministry, or the fear of taking that step, people aren't going to like me. They're not going to like what I do. I'm not going to do it right. I live in that world. I'm never going to do it right. I didn't want to do the podcast because I'm going to say stupid things and I'm not going to do it right. But God hasn't given us that spirit of fear. Satan has.
Right.
And we got to acknowledge that and then just trust the Lord and move forward.
That's really good. For the record, I'm very happy that you did the podcast because I have learned a lot.
Oh, bless your heart. You're so sweet.
I have. I really have. This has been good. Do you want to do our moment at the well?
Yeah. So, first of all, before we go into the moment, I just want to thank you for sharing your heart, because I know that, like you said, or we've talked about, that being a pastor's wife can somewhat be isolating. But the beautiful truth is that while you might not have a friend by your side, you always have the Lord, and He's a friend above all friends.
That's it.
And so just want to thank you for coming and sharing, because our hope and desire for this is obviously to meet women where they're at, and who knows what pastor's wife may listen to this and may be encouraged by your testimony, what God has.
That they're not the only one.
Exactly. So just want to thank you for that. But we typically like to end with what we call the moment at the well. And if you just wanted to share with us, like, just maybe a impactful moment where God met you, where you were at and drew you closer to Him. It could be like a certain...
Oh, I can tell you exactly.
Okay, go for it. I'm glad you already know what I was going to say.
I was struggling to find my place being here. And, I've volunteered behind the scene things and stuff like that. But very, very dear, godly woman passed away a year ago, Judy Meldrum. And going to her funeral rocked my world, because she was with her husband every time they went visiting, whether if it was an event, if it was coming up to the church to volunteer to do something, she was with him every time. Her children gave the most amazing testimonies of Mama turning the bad experiences into good experiences. Her faithfulness. She was a prayer warrior. It inspired a lot of us at the church about prayer, being faithful in prayer. But get in there and do it. What are you waiting for? And the anniversary of her death is in October, and it's been a year of an amazing time in my life, because I have stopped worrying about what people think about me, and I just want to serve Jesus. And that's why the Molino campus opening, it being out where I'm at, I have opportunities to serve there that I love. I love our campus. By the way, come visit us, Molino Park Elementary, 10 a.m. But we have an amazing campus pastor, shout out Jacob Giles, and we have an amazing ladies Bible study group that meets at Jimmy's at 8 o'clock on Thursday mornings. Amazing bunch of ladies that first time in years I've been around so many wonderful, godly ladies, and we honestly pray for each other. We lift each other up in prayer. And but I hated that it took Miss Judy passing, because she was so wonderful to me while she was here. Why didn't I pay attention then? But her funeral just brought up that it all comes down to, what have we done for Christ? You know, it doesn't really matter how we feel today, how we all the fears that Satan puts in our lives. It's about, what can I do for God today? And let him worry about how people feel about it. You know, let him worry about all the crazy things that Satan puts in our mind. And it's a shame it took me so long. But that was a pivotal moment for me and I don't know why, to be honest, because I mean, she was so good to me and so sweet with me and always so good with me. Why didn't I pay attention before? But it did. And you'd hate to think that it's a funeral that does that, but yeah. But I think it was the summation of her life that just blew my mind.
Wow, that's good.
It was very good.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. You're so very sweet, you too.
Time flew. It's already been an hour.
Has it? Oh,
yes.
My. Oh, hey, I can talk.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate you being here. We pray that this podcast leaves you with just a little bit of a blessing from the Lord, and that you just remember that we're here. If you have a prayer request, please DM us. We'd love to be praying alongside you. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week with another episode. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
It's a brand new day.